Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of my all-time favorite pieces of apocalyptic fiction. What makes it great is the fact that its creator, Hideaki Anno, has always left the meaning of the series completely up to interpretation and has never really given actual definitive answers as to what the series is all about. The only thing we do know for certain about the series is the fact that it was made during a period of time in which he was suffering from severe depression, and his bleak outlook on the world and himself is clearly reflected in the nihilistic nature and aesthetics of the story. Evangelion, whether it is the masterpiece original series from the 90s or the more casual but visually impressive rebuild films, this show is undoubtedly one that, through its themes, symbolism, character writing, and overall plot, is one that fits the mold of metal music perfectly. We have seen many fans of the series make their own music in homage to Evangelion, but most of the time it's something like very experimental rap or hip-hop music, grindcore, electroniccore, dubstep, and even some orchestral and piano pieces. While I personally have nothing against the last two musical styles in the sense of what kind of sound and instrumentation matches Evangelion's atmosphere and story, I cannot say that I personally find the other genres I mentioned even remotely fitting of a story of this kind, and call me a traditionalist if you want when it comes to my ideas as to what genres of music and instrumentation fit certain imagery or genres of fiction, but one cannot deny the fact that orchestral music, especially when combined with metal, makes something that is already great into something more than that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Let's Construct a Concept Album, and today I will be pitching my idea for a concept album themed around Neon Genesis Evangelion, as in the original TV show, the end of Evangelion, and the rebuild films. Roll the intro! So this particular episode is going to be very different to the previous one where I pitched an idea for a concept album themed around Berserk. In that episode I proposed a more metal opera style of album which had a variety of musicians and vocalists collaborating together to play the roles of different characters within Berserk's story and use their individual strengths as songwriters to create a sound that would match the tone and aesthetic of Berserk's story perfectly. This time round, however, for an album themed around Evangelion, I need only one band, with perhaps maybe one or two ideal contributing songwriters and maybe 3 guest vocalists at the most. Though not to play the roles of characters, but merely to add different shades of darkness to the bleak but epic and bombastic soundscape of the music and the apocalyptic tone of Evangelion's themes and story. My ideal band for pulling off this concept album would have to be the symphonic black metal band Dimmu Borgir. Now, I'm aware that this band have undergone a lot of lineup changes over the years, and that their current sound is nothing like what they used to be. So the idea that I've proposed here, and keep in mind that this is merely a pitch for my ideal album, if I had the means to fund it myself and had any remote kind of musical talent within me to put it together. The reason why I would pick Dimmu Borgir, and the reason why I think they are perfect for doing a concept album themed around Evangelion, is because of how theatrical their music is, as well as their overall image, their music videos, etc. Their brand of black metal is very heavily influenced by classical music, and they are one of the more accessible bands of the genre, which means that even if you aren't really a fan of metal but are a fan of Evangelion, their epic, brooding, bombastic and apocalyptic soundscape would be enough to draw you in and immerse you in a listening experience that allows you to revisit a lot of Evangelion's most iconic scenes, regardless of which version of the story you enjoy. With that being said, if they were to do this album, I would use their sound from the following 3 albums within their discography. First being Puritanical Misanthropic Euphoria, the second being Death Cult Armageddon, and the third being Abradahadra. The reason why I would want their sound from any of these 3 albums is because I personally find them to be the most epic and the ones that utilize the orchestral, choral and synth elements to their full advantage and give them that epic and cinematic sound worthy of a high budget film. Also, I find the mixing and production of these albums to be very similar to a lot of Shiro Sagisu, the composer of the original Evangelion soundtracks, orchestral sound, albeit with a bit more evil and sinister sounding elements within it. Now, aside from the actual band, any of the orchestras and choirs that they have worked with in the past would be preferable. This ranges anywhere between the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra, the Norwegian Radio Orchestra, and the Scholar Cantorum Choir, of which all have worked on either one or all 3 of the albums that I just listed. As for songwriters, while Shagrath will indeed need to contribute to the overall songwriting, I feel that it would be too easy for me to just say, let Dimmu do the whole thing, without some help or contribution in other places that could separate this album as being more of a Dimmu side project, instead of having it be part of their main discography, which risks polarizing their core fan base who might not be into the whole anime aspect of this album. So my first pick for an additional songwriter would have to be Morion of Dark Fortress and Alkaloid. The man is a brilliant composer and has written music that Beethoven himself would be proud of in both his metal and his more orchestral career. Not only that, but he is a gifted vocalist who is able to not only do black metal screams, but death metal growls, prog-styled cleans, and almost Mongolian throat chant style as well. It's a very odd style that he has, but it's very dark, it's very sinister, it's very demonic in nature, and it would add a lot of variety and personality to Dimmu's music, and his songwriting would add a bit more depth and more progressive elements to the orchestral side of Dimmu's music. My second pick for in case Morion is unable to take up the project would have to be Christos Antonio of Septic Flesh. Yes, I know I point to these guys a lot, but I cannot get over how awesome they are in the orchestral department. This is because his style of classical songwriting utilizes brass instruments to great effect, and it would give any of the songs, especially those that are of a slower tempo, that feeling of impending doom as mankind battles the angels in an effort to prevent the apocalypse from occurring. Not only that, but the fact that he always works with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra means that it's always a guarantee that there will be exceptional talent behind the music when it comes to performance and quality. I mean, just take a listen to these short excerpts from some of my favorite Septic Flesh songs and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. vocalists, the first one should be obvious, and that is Shagrath himself. The dude's vocals are ghoulish, devilish, and his epic narration voice is something that the Dimmu Borgir sound cannot go without. Plus his voice just fits with the dark psychological themes and imagery of Evangelion's story, which really sells the whole apocalyptic vibe. I mean, just listen to these brief clips from Gateways to get a sense of what I mean.
The core principle of freedom is the only notion to obey. The formula of evolution is sin. Leading the way. It is all there for the eyes that can see. The blind ones will always suffer in secrecy. Praise the omen of what lies approach.
The second vocalist I would have appear for some parts in songs is ex-Dimmu Borgir clean vocalist and bassist Vortex. His unique brand of clean vocals that are clearly inspired by many operatic styles of music is something that would break up the more intense, harsh and aggressive main body of the music and add that element of creating a gothic sense of beauty and tranquility in the darkness. His vocals would also add a much needed atmospheric element to the music, which you can hear in the following examples. Third is Morion, and I've already explained why he would be able to contribute, so there's no real need to revisit that. Finally, I would pick Sharon Denadel of Within Temptation to maybe feature in one or two, at the most 3 songs on the album. Her angelic mezzo-soprano voice would serve well for a more calm, tranquil and serene interlude in certain moments of Evangelion's story, and they would add a hint of hopefulness and perhaps provoke feelings of the bittersweet emotions that are found within the show if Shagrath and whichever of the 2 chosen songwriters take up the job and utilize her talents to their advantage when writing the music.
Sparkling angel, I believe you are my savior in my time of need. Blinded by faith, I couldn't hear.
As for the lyrics, they should be written by Morion, I would say, because I personally prefer Morion's style of lyricism over Shagrath's, because sometimes Shagrath's lyricism can be a bit campy and cheesy, which is something Dimmu Borgir have been accused a lot of during the course of their career. So I would much rather have Morion write the lyrics, as I feel he is the right man for the job and is able to tell a more cohesive story instead of trying to come off as this cartoony villain from a kid's cartoon in a certain sense. So, no offense to Shagrath, but I would much rather have Morian write the lyrics for this album. Now we come to the last aspect of the album, which is the album art. The predominant colors of Evangelion mostly consist of many dark shades and hues of blue and purple, while the bright crimson that we see in the oceans of this universe look as though one has stepped into a bleak and desolate world, almost completely devoid of all life and hope. So, considering the fact that this album will be a black metal album, it's only appropriate that the imagery of Evangelion be given the black metal art style treatment. So, I would suggest having a cover that makes use of either black and red or black and purple with obvious shades of grey and white to balance it out. Also, considering the fact that Evangelion is riddled with religious symbolism ranging from Christianity to Buddhism, the artist in charge of the cover should have no trouble in perhaps producing a cover that uses the cast of the series in a way that mirrors many of the religious paintings and artworks in our world in order to create something that reflects the grand, epic, majestic and symbolic meanings of the story. So just take a look at some of these examples that I found on DeviantArt and on Google, and you'll see what kinds of art styles I am looking for. I would hire someone who can still allow the art to retain the original anime character designs while giving it a sense of realism, romanticism, and gothic horror that captures the sound of Dimmu Borgir and the apocalyptic atmosphere of Evangelion's story. Anyways, folks, those are just some of my ideas for an ideal concept album based around Neon Genesis Evangelion. What are some of your ideas? Please discuss them with me in the comments down below. I'm extremely keen and curious to know what you guys would do if you had the funds or the musical talent to arrange such a project. And if you happen to be a musician yourself, and you've done some Evangelion inspired music in the past, then please don't hesitate to message me on Facebook or Twitter with your material. I'll be more than happy to check it out. Also, if you haven't already done so, be sure to check out the previous episode, my pitch for a concept album themed around Berserk, and share your ideas there as well. Before I sign off, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. If you want to help me produce better and more high quality content for you guys, please consider donating to my Patreon, and if you want to follow me or get in contact with me, then check out the relative links in the description box down below for all my social media pages. Take care of yourselves everyone, and as always, have a kick-ass day. Cheers.